I've been living in my RV for 8 years, and it has been my home. But recently, some strange things started happening after my old RV broke down. Let me tell you a bit about my life. When I turned 18, my parents kicked me out of their house, and I found myself with no money and a low-paying job. Renting a place was out of the question because I couldn't afford it. So, I ended up living in my small old sedan that my grandma bought for me on my birthday. I'm not angry at my parents for what they did. I understand that turning 18 meant I needed to find my own way. However, I promised myself that I would never do the same to my future kids. That's when I made the decision to buy an old RV and make it my home. For 8 years, that RV has been my cozy shelter, before upgrading and buying a newer RV to live in. I saw a perfect size RV for a single person, got excited, and contacted the seller. When I went to check out the RV, it was a quick transaction. He told me it was his family's RV and he didn't need it anymore. I didn't ask too many questions because, let's be honest, the price was just too good to pass up. At first, everything seemed fine during the first week with my new RV. But things took a turn during the second week. One day, I was coming back from a friend's house after watching movies. As I approached my RV, I heard what sounded like someone yelling from inside. The lights were flickering, and I could see shadows moving around. I cautiously walked closer to investigate, but suddenly everything went silent, and the flickering light stopped. I slowly unlocked the door with my key, and as I opened it, darkness greeted me. It was quiet, and I thought that maybe it was all just in my head. That night, I went to sleep, but I was abruptly awakened by a loud argument. It sounded like a couple were fighting, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. The next morning, I woke up and went about my daily routine, doing some stretching in front of my RV. As I reached for my hot coffee on top of the RV's hood, I saw 2 figures sitting in the front seat. A man was behind the wheel, and a woman sat beside him. I was startled, and in my shock, I dropped my coffee and stepped back, away from the RV. This time, I could clearly see that they were arguing inside. I decided to park my RV in front of my friend's house that day. I hurried to my friend's house to tell him about what I had experienced. We both rushed back to the RV, but when we arrived, there was no one inside. I was trembling with fear and told my friend that I would spend another night parked in front of his house. He reassured me that I could stay there as long as I needed since we were good friends. That night, my friend and I returned from the theater late. After saying our goodbyes, I went inside my RV and went straight to bed without changing my clothes. Just as I was about to drift off to sleep, a man's voice yelled so loudly that it startled me awake. Suddenly, the car's engine roared to life. I was terrified and quickly jumped out of the RV. I ran to my friend's door and knocked frantically. My friend looked at me like I was crazy, but we both went to check the car. To our surprise, there was nothing wrong. The engine was off, and the strange thing was that I still had my key in my pocket since I went straight to bed. Desperate for answers, I contacted the young man who had sold me the RV. At first, he hesitated to tell me anything, but after hearing my story about the haunted RV, he decided to reveal the truth. He explained that one day, his parents had returned from a road trip. As they parked the RV on their lot, he witnessed them arguing and refusing to come out. Amidst the argument, his mother grabbed his father's handgun. In the struggle to retrieve the gun, it accidentally went off, shooting his mother in the stomach. His father then turned to him, their son, from outside and said, "Sorry," before taking his own life with another gunshot. Both of his parents had died in the RV. Upon learning this, I sold the haunted RV to a young couple that is starting their RV life, or what they call the van life. I vowed never to live in it again. Instead, I rented a small apartment, relieved to be free from the eerie presence that had haunted my home on wheels. My name is Alex, and I've been living in my trusty RV for as long as I can remember. It's been my home, my shelter, and my companion. I've traveled from place to place, never settling down and finding peace on the open road. Life was simple, but it was my own. I was once a normal husband with a lovely wife and kids. Back in 2001, my wife died in a car accident, leaving my 4 kids behind. I've been working hard 7 days a week to raise my kids until they all finally turned into adults. They all finally got married and went their separate ways, so now I'm all alone and have been living in my RV ever since. One sunny day, as I parked my RV in a small town, I noticed a woman who caught my eye. Her smile was like sunshine, and her laughter was music to my ears. We started talking, and before I knew it, we were inseparable. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into years. We built a beautiful life together, filled with love and happiness. We explored new places, shared countless adventures, and created memories that I will cherish forever. She was my rock, my confidante, and my best friend. But as time passed, I began to notice some strange things. Whispers started circulating in town about a dangerous killer on the loose. People were living in fear, and the authorities were desperately searching for this notorious criminal. Little did I know that the woman I loved was the very person they were after. One fateful evening, as I stumbled upon an old newspaper, my heart sank. There, staring back at me, was a familiar face, the face of the most wanted killer in town. My mind was filled with confusion, disbelief, and fear. How could the person I trusted, the one I loved, be responsible for such terrible acts? I confronted her, hoping for an explanation, but the truth slowly unraveled before me. She confessed to her dark deeds, revealing a hidden side I never knew existed. My world shattered, and I felt a mix of emotions, betrayal, anger, and deep sadness. I had a choice to make, a difficult decision that would shape my future. I could turn her into the authorities, knowing it was the right thing to do, or I could flee and leave everything behind. My heart wavered between justice and love. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to betray her. The love we shared was real, and despite her dark past, I couldn't let go. We vanished into the night, disappearing into the vastness of the world, forever on the run from the law. Living on the edge became our reality. We were forever looking over our shoulders, never knowing when our luck would run out. It wasn't the life I had envisioned, but love has a way of blinding us and making us do things we never thought possible. So here I am, still living in my RV, with the woman I once thought I knew by my side. We live a life of uncertainty, always on the move, always hiding. The weight of her past crimes hangs heavy on our hearts, but the love we share remains. And while the world may see her as a wanted killer, I see the complexity of a person, flawed and haunted by their past. Together, we navigate this dark path, holding on to the hope that one day, redemption will find its way to us. I used to live in an RV, and it was the freedom I craved. The open road was my home, and I relished the simplicity of a nomadic existence. No mortgage, no ties to any particular place. I was a lone traveler, wandering from town to town, taking in the sights and embracing the adventure. Life was good, or so I thought. About a year into my RV lifestyle, one day I was parking inside a forest and decided to stay there for about 2 or 3 days to enjoy the place. The first night went peacefully. The second night was when everything changed. In the middle of the night, I got up to go use the bathroom when I took a brief outside the window. At first, I didn't see anything, but the moment I was about to turn, something out of the corner of my eye moved. I turned back towards the window but didn't see anything, so I didn't think much of it. After I finished using the bathroom and went back to bed, I decided to take another peek at the window. My heart almost stopped because a woman was peeking at me from it. I could only see the top of her head and her eyes, but I could tell something was wrong. The woman then quickly ducked down and disappeared from my sight, so I yelled at her to wait. I took my flashlight, climbed onto the roof of the RV from inside, and began to scan the surroundings. She was nowhere in sight, but I heard what sounded like croaking sounds coming from the woods. The croaking sounded like someone was choking, so I flashed towards the source of the sound, and I instinctively dropped my flashlight when I saw what it was. It was a woman, and she kept twisting her head around in positions that should not be possible for a human. Whenever she got to a position that was hard to twist, she would make a croaking sound and twist her head in another direction. What creeped me out the most was that I could tell that her eyes were on me the whole time she was twisting her head. Those eyes never left my sight. I quickly ducked down and went to the driver's seat, turned on the engine, and drove away as quickly as I could. I drove to a location popular with other RV campers, and when I saw a lot of RVs there, I parked my car there. In the morning, I went over what I had witnessed, but I couldn't come up with any logical reasoning. A month passed, but since I didn't see anything again, I finally decided to let go of the memory slowly. I started to feel brave again, so one night when I was coming from a friend's house and I was too tired, I decided to park on the side of a wooden road. I went to sleep soon after. I woke up to a peculiar noise. At first I thought it was the sound of an animal, but then I heard it again, and I knew instantly what it was. It was the sound of croaking again, this time coming from near the window. I just froze and didn't know what else to think. I was about to get out of bed when I heard pounding on the door. The door had a big window on it, so if you look out, you can see pretty much anything on that side. I slowly got up and went to check, and I saw the same woman banging her head hard on the window. Just like last time, her eyes never left my sight. I will never forget those eyes and the feeling of having such eyes looking dead center on me. When I heard the woman trying to open the door, for a second, I felt relief that since I had locked the door, she would never get in. I then quickly drove away again. I looked in the mirror to check behind me, and she was just there, standing still and looking at me as I drove away. I drove to my friend's house and told him everything. Ever since that day, I've decided that the RV lifestyle is just not for me.